Hello, friends. One of my favorite training program is actually Train the Trainer. While the audience and the participants call me the facilitator, I've always had so much of learning from the course participants. These are various subject matter experts, and I decided to start this podcast to share their wisdom with all of you. And today, it's a great honor to have my good friend Dinesh Karna, the founder of Aspire Up Consultancy. I met
Hi,
Dinesh.
doctor.
Hi, Dinesh. When we met Dinesh was about 2 years ago.
That's right. It was probably December 2021 was when we connected. I think probably if memory serves me correctly, November of 2021 when we first communicated.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Dinesh called me from Kuala Lumpur, and that time my training was scheduled, the immediate training was scheduled in Penang. And I was so touched when Dinesh decided to travel all the way from Kuala Lumpur to Penang. And throughout the class, he's sharing. And, he started his career in the sales industry as a young boy. I would say we'll know more about it. And when I decided to have this conversation with Dinesh, I was so touched with the title Unmasking Leadership Essentials. I was immediately attracted to the title, and I'm sure Dinesh will be sharing his wisdom on this very, very important subject. Dinesh, before we continue, of course, I know you, but I'm sure our audience here would like to know more about you, Dinesh. Please tell us a little bit of your background, where you started, and where are you now?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity, Dr. Prabha. It was a great experience with the trainer program, coming all the way to Penang to spend some time with you. I think it was over a course of a week. It was an amazing experience. We had a great cohort of the people, professionals that were coming onto the training, and I was blown away by the sheer support, camaraderie to really learn from each other that our cohort really demonstrated, and obviously led by you for that trainer program. And thank you very much for that and giving me the opportunity to be here today for this wonderful sharing session. And so a little bit about myself, I'm a local PJ boy growing up in Klang Valley, and I started my career very very young, at the age of 19 in sales, and I did sales, pretty much both direct selling and also telemarketing a little bit, where I started my career. And very very quickly in a number of years, I progressed to a team leader and then became a manager, where I was in charge of a team of sales professionals, and had the opportunity to travel the world and work in different countries all across Southeast Asia. It was I'd say a wonderful eye-opening adventure to be given the privilege to do something I loved, which obviously involves training and developing people, leading a team at such a young age. I was in my mid 20s at that time, and also having the opportunity to travel and work in different parts of Southeast Asia. So that was great. And I have to say, when I was looking at the title Unmasking Leadership, I think a lot of people, you know, at least in the first instance, get think that leadership is a very complex thing, and therefore sometimes come in with a lot of apprehension and a lot of anxiety to a new leadership role. And as a result with that, and from my experience as well as a young leader when I was in my mid 20s, you come off to try and display a style of leadership that sometimes doesn't work because it involves a little bit too much of micromanaging. I can tell you about what leadership shouldn't be like. It shouldn't be task driven, focused on just tasks, and it shouldn't be managing your team. However, that's how I started leading teams, because you're very good at your job as an individual contributor when you start your career, and that's when you get promoted in the first place because you're really good at what you do. Then when you get promoted, you no one teaches you how to lead, and you go into this new leadership role, and you realize that you don't know how to lead, but just because you were good at the job in the beginning, that's why you got promoted in the first place. And then you kind of observe your predecessors or other leaders, and you read a few books, and you try to muddle your way through the leadership journey. And obviously, lots of learnings and mistakes and failures along the way. But ultimately, if you are consistent and keep an open mind and view leadership the same way you view any subject matter that you want to be good at, and be a student of leadership and have that mindset of being a student of leadership, then you will eventually develop or unmask your own leadership style that comprises the key essentials of what leadership is about, but with a little bit of flavor that is your own. And I think that stems from wanting to develop your people to be not only good at what they're doing in terms of their roles that you are overseeing and leading, but also to enable an opportunity to uplift them to become leaders in their own rights. So, the saying goes, effective leader is one that has the ability to develop other leaders within their remit of responsibility. And I think, if there comes a time where one of your team members are saying to you, "Oh, well, Mr. Dinesh or Mr. Prabha, Dr. Prabha, thank you very much, but I've got this. I can handle it." That is a sign of successful leadership. You've managed to create competent, confident, and driven individuals that can stand on their own 2 feet and make change and drive and develop other people as well. So I think that creates a positive knock on effect for future success for any organization. So I think, in a nutshell, I would say that's where leadership is all about.
Wow, wow. And this is what, more than 2 decades of experience, trial and error, perhaps at the initial stage. I like when you said that, no, you went from an individual contributor, done your job well, got promoted. And before I'm sure there's a lot of success story, Dinesh. I'm sure that will take more time. But I'd like to hear from you, what are some of the failures in leadership that became a good learning experience for you? And we will explore later how that experience can help you to others to avoid. Not many people will have the chance to make mistake and survive. The world is so competitive
Sure.
today. And what are some of the failure or lesson that you gain from your years of international experience, Dinesh?
I think one experience which I can tell you was 2005, 2004 March, and I found myself in Dubai, and I took on a new job with a new organization. It was a level up from my previous job that I was doing in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, as an operations director. And this was a regional role as ops director for Middle East. And again, I was fairly young, and there was many firsts for me in 2004. The first, you would see expat position in a foreign land to be based there for a long period of time. My wife was pregnant with my son, and so obviously our first child, and we're now moving together as a family to be located in a new place. And this new position, and also reporting to an external HQ based out of UK, and myself based in Dubai as regional head for Middle East. So coming into that position in my early 30s, I found it to be, there's a lot of apprehension, there was a lot of insecurities, And one of the things I failed to do was being able to connect with all the leaders. So imagine this, I'm based out of Dubai and I've got managers located all across Middle East. And these people were reporting to me, international team. And obviously, they are all professionals and experts in their own right, and they've got years of experience under them. Some of them much more senior to me in terms of age, but here they are reporting to me, and that's for me that was a lot of insecurities. That am I going to be able to lead them well? What is their perception of who am I? This Malaysian chap coming out of KL now overseeing international teams. So a lot of these insecurities I brought with me to the role. And I think it made me close off a little bit. And I say close off, meaning I was not very available and approachable to my team, these country managers, because I felt that I might say something that might make me look stupid. And as a result, I was not successful in building connections and relationships with all of these people who are ultimately my team reporting to me. And therefore, there wasn't I was not establishing a good level of trust within my team members. At least for the first 6 to 8 months, I found it very challenging to get things moving. I had found it very difficult to align everybody because they didn't really have trust in me. And I will say that maybe 8 out of 10 would be my fault for not opening up more, not spending more time to engage with the country managers, to really build good connection with them, take the effort to get to know them as individuals, as human beings, and then understand their strengths and look at ways in which I can leverage on their strengths, being, effective professionals in their own right for the greater good of the organization. So yeah, so that was one of my biggest failures because the first 8 months was extremely challenging. I found it. I was having constantly battling with these country managers who just would not want to align with things, and it became out very frustrating.
Mm, wow. Thank you very much for sharing that experience, Dinesh. I've heard a lot of leaders talk about their strength, their achievement, the medals, and all that. But I really appreciate your sharing of this weakness or limitation, at least at the initial stage. And what you did differently. From our conversation, I realized there was quite a bit of success stories, transformation, if I may call that. What you did differently and what was the lesson from those challenges, Dinesh?
Yeah. So I was I I always believe in having mentors, people that are experts in their own right. And there was a mentor of mine that I reached out to that is also a friend of mine by the name of Neil. And I was telling Neil, at least I've got this scenario where I'm trying to get things done, and these country managers are not being able to work with me. And we were trying to look at the gaps. And what I realized from those discussions was the gaps were the lack of openness from my side. I wasn't being open enough, and also because of the lack of openness and transparency in terms of what I want to achieve and how I'm going to make that, what are the opportunities for them as these country managers to progress and grow. I was not putting myself in their shoes. I was not being empathetic enough. I'm not trying to understand their career path. And everyone's, especially when you're at that level, you're looking to grow, you're looking to drive results. You want to know what happens if I get this, and how many more years will I be to be able to reach the next level of my career. And I had all these really motivated, driven, career focused individuals, but I was not harnessing that because I was not trying to understand who they were, what were their career goals, and how can we align. So the change happened when I said that, what, so the gap was obviously the openness side of things, in terms of me being open and me being more empathetic to their situation and their career growth and what works for them. So understanding their goals and aspirations. So the next step was actually to take that to action, which means to be able to enable that. And so I was here in Dubai, I was remotely dealing with all these people, and I never once made the effort to go to the countries that they were located in and spend a week with them, connecting with them in a physical sense and with a handshake and meeting them and understanding their world and what they are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So that was the next step. So I scheduled a 1 month trip around South Middle East, covering every country, spending at least 3 or 4 days in one location with the country managers to try and connect with them in a real way, a physical way, but also trying to understand their scenario and their world and what were the things that they were going through, and trying to work with them in a more supportive way to bring out the best for them and their teams in that particular location. So those trips that I made, that initial trip, there it was a huge change or transformation in the relationship and bond and engagement with every one of those country managers that were reporting, because it changed their perspective of who I was, because they got to know me as a person. It made me understand them a lot more in terms of the challenges they're facing and what they want, what their aspirations were. And we started to align together for a common goal to achieve success for everybody. So I think that step of going there and seeing them and shaking their hands and meeting them for breakfast and lunch and talking to them and spending time with them during the day made a huge impact, exponential growth in terms of trust between one another. And that led to better alignment in terms of how we worked. And then there was a knock on effect of positive, ripple positive effect across what we were trying to achieve together at that time.
Wow, wow. I really like the idea of when you need help, ask. And you had good friends and a mentor like Neil, and I'm sure you have put enough effort and relationship with Neil and leaders like him for them to share the wisdom. And I'm so happy that you are willing to share your constraint limitation, where you were initially, at least you were not open, you were not empathic. And I'm sure the conversation with Neil and your own reflection perhaps decided to take action. And if I learn something here, knowing is one thing, but taking action. And when you take the right action, the result is quite obvious, where you build better relationship with the team. But Dinesh, not many people will have the luxury of 6 months or 7 months of exploring. Perhaps in the 90s, the world could have been a bit kinder. I'm not sure. But today is so competitive, and leaders and those who are aspiring to be leaders may not have that luxury. And with your decades of international experience, what would be your suggestion to someone who's aspiring to be a good leader? What are the first? And I remember we discussed about the transformation of individual contributors. When they were so good as an individual, they get promoted to leadership position. But some of them may not be prepared. And how you, as a leadership coach, as a trainer, as a mentor, what would be your advice to those aspiring to be a leader to reduce the chances of making mistakes? Share your thoughts, please, Dinesh.
I think, yeah, thank you, Dr. Els. That's a very good question, actually. I think first, first of all, I'll have to go back to my initial thought in terms of leadership that we all need to be open enough to understand that we all need to be students of leadership. And when I say a student of leadership, I really mean being open to learning from others, being open to
Sorry, Dinesh, can't hear you.
Can you hear me now, Doctor?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, continue.
Right. And so we means that you got to be open to being slightly different from what you are normally. Let me explain what I mean. We all have certain personality types. We all communicate in certain ways. Some of us are more reserved. Some of us are more open and willing to talk and express ourselves, more expressive. Some of us are much more of a middle ground. You can balance from both the reserve side and also the expressive side. And what's important for any leader to understand, at least the emerging leaders, is that everyone in your team will also have these different personality types or communication types. And engaging with each person successfully would mean that you'd have to adjust the way in which you communicate. So if you are a data driven person that's very analytical, very numbers driven, and you really like just looking at facts and figures, but you're in a leadership position, then in order for you to connect with a team member who might be more of a expressive and likes to communicate and likes to talk more, would mean that you've got to adjust the way in which you communicate in order to reach them in a more cohesive way. Meaning to say, the first level that we all have to understand is how to adjust ourselves to the people that we're communicating with. So it's to do with situational leadership, which is understanding the type of people that we are leading and managing. Some of them might be very experienced, others might not be very experienced. So, with the different types of people, and some may be very experienced and very expressive, some of them will be very experienced but very reserved. How do you then, as a leader, adjust the way in which you communicate in order to connect with them in a meaningful way? So, that's the first step. So, a lot of leaders forget that it's not your team having to adjust to you, although there's elements of that that's required in terms of style of communication. But we as leaders are the ones that need to take the first step of putting our hand out to say, hey, I'm trying to understand what you mean by these things. Can we have a meeting to sit down and discuss it? Because I really want to understand where you're coming from and to see whether or not we can solve the problem. The problem is an external thing. It's not although we champion certain solutions and therefore we embody the solution. And therefore, if we don't get approval for that solution, we feel like we are defeated. But the solution or the problem is an external thing in any company, right? So we've got to look at it as a separate entity. And so we come together as me as a leader and you as a team member in order to find a solution or the problem or the scenario that's presented to us. So if you look at it in that context, then it's not me against you, it's you and me against the problem. And
Nice.
therefore, there is a different way in which you create a perception of communication with your team so that your team's anxiety levels will drop. They don't feel level of unnecessary stress. And therefore, they can think more fluidly to wear problem solving hats and to achieve the result that you want. So the way in which you word your communication needs to embody that it is the problem is a separate entity. How can we look at solving this? What are the ideas? It's not me against you saying to you, how are you going to solve it? It's not that. So that language or style of language as a leader is so important, because everything you say, the way you carry yourself, your approach, everything is being observed, and people, understand you by not just by what you say, but also how you say it and how you communicate it. And all of these things have got impact to the people and your teams, but also the results, which you as a leader, you want to hit those KPIs, you want to drive the performance of your teams. And therefore, it's so important for us to make sure that we are approaching the way in which we communicate with our teams correctly. And a lot of times leaders forget
Right.
that. They do not take enough reflection on communication, and as a result come off wrong. And therefore they are misunderstood. The leaders, obviously all leaders want to see results. But how in which you get there, they need to be careful how they approach the way in which they communicate to get the results they want with their teams.
Wow, wow, Dinesh. I've read, I've spoke about situational leadership, but you brought an amazing new perspective for me when you said you as a leader and your team, not against each other, but you together as a team address the problem, and together you create solution and distance from the problem and look at it clearly with this idea of learning from it. And I really love your sharing about the significance of learning, the significance of applying situational leadership, being empathic. And one great thing I really love is you as a leader, you adjust with the team instead of demanding, use your authority to expect them to change. Perhaps listening to you reflect, seek to understand, then to be understood. The Kavi's fifth leadership principle in the seven habits. Brilliant, brilliant.
Absolutely.
And from your successful career in the international arena, then tell us more. What inspired you to come to my world of training and now our world of training? What inspired
Yeah.
you to be a trainer, Dinesh?
Yeah, I thank you for that question. I think that's the question that has been, in my mind for the longest time. My late father always used to say to me, you seem like you're a very good coach. Even when I was much younger, I was very good at teaching people things by simplifying it. And my dad used to always tell me, "Hey, you're very good at doing this. You can make something is difficult sound simple." I said, "No, actually, it's not difficult if we can break it down to smaller pieces and explain it in smaller bite-sized pieces. Anyone can do anything they want to do." And that was always the thing. My dad always said to me, "Yeah, you're a good coach. You can train people and so on." So when I started my career, I always enjoyed that part. I took a lot of pride in seeing people progress and become successful. I feel I get a lot of satisfaction from that, seeing people succeed in anything they do through the coaching training that we do together to make them better and to see them succeed and grow. And all through my career over the last 20 years, at least 30% of my role has been some form of training or coaching for leaders. And then, when I turned 45, I was thinking to myself, well, I think the corporate world has seen enough of Dinesh, and I wanted to do something I'm truly passionate about, which has always been the case for the years that I've done it, which is training and development. And that's really where my heart is. And I thought to myself, if you think about your life cycle, or your life as a human being, you've got 70 odd years. Maybe some of us are luckier
Mm.
and some of us a little bit unlucky as well. So you can go both ways, but around about 70. And if you think about it, at my age right now, at 48, I come to a point where I want to do. this next part of my life, focus on what I really enjoy, and I bring a lot of it brings a lot of satisfaction to me, but also to see people progress and be better is something that is incredibly worth the next part of my life to focus on. And if I've got some experience and opportunity to share that can help people be more successful than I was, and shortcut success and find these easy ways or easy steps to bypass all of these, the complex nature of what leadership is all about and so on, then what a fantastic opportunity it would be to be part of the learning and development community. And I decided to start my career in learning and development, set up my own company, and pursue this in a very focused way, because it's not just going to be benefiting to me, but it's going to be benefiting people across the world. So I think the basis of it is wanting to help people succeed. And I just want to focus on that as the next, how many years I have left in this world.
Sure. Sure. I wish many, many more years. I really love your values, the joy of helping others to be, I love your word, to be more successful than you are. And in the process of that, you get so much of joy. That's essential values of a trainer or anyone in this talent development, leadership and development initiatives. You had so much of experience, you have so much of success and international exposure, yet you decided to join the trainer. I wonder if you learned anything, or is it purely to get a certificate? What was some of the key lesson, if there's any, Dinesh, from our train the trainer program?
I think I think learning has always, or at least a philosophy that I adopted in the past, had to be immersive experiential learning. Whatever that you're trying to teach, people need to feel that they are doing it and then learn from that. And from the minute I joined the training program, from day one, from the first 5 minutes, I felt that I was immersed in a program and you set the stage. And that's the beauty about the way in which you facilitate, Dr. Prabha. It came off to be a it was not about you as the facilitator, it was about us as the learners. And so therefore you made us to be the center of that entire training program, and you made us connect to who we are and reflect on what it meant to wear a trainer's hat. And I think that important thing is that the emphasis on the power of being, and this is the messaging I got from the session with you, the power of being a trainer, a teacher, is something that is highly valuable. We go back to the ancient Hindu scriptures, Mada Pita Guru Devam, and the way in which that, your mother, your father, teacher, and then your God is reflected even in Hindu scriptures, and how important it is to be a teacher, a guru, and therefore to take the role as serious as that. It's not just about a livelihood for you as a trainer, but there's a lot of responsibility attached to what you do, and therefore that integrity need to come out in terms of the way you deliver it, so that there is learning goes that gets transferred, and a transformation happens that they can take away to their workplace. And that is the key part of what we do. We're not there to have them in a classroom for however long, 1 day, 2 days, half a day, whatever it is. And then they get all happy and excited and have a good time, and they go off, and the next day they've forgotten what they actually were there in the first place for the last couple of days. And I think taking something away. And for me, that was the takeaway. The takeaway for me was the integrity of what I was doing, the way in which you facilitated as making me the center and not you the facilitator. You were creating an environment where I was going through that immersive learning and I felt connected to the material. The way you connected to your stories that related to what it means to train, I thought it was incredibly powerful. So, and I remember telling you this, I came away from the training saying, I kind of found my next mentor, and it's you.
Thank you.
so,
Really appreciate
so
it.
it's exactly those things that, that I found great value. I have a lot of respect for you in terms of your years experience in your ability to help people go through that transformation. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever career path you're taking, you're coming in for this certification to take away something that you want to apply in your life or your career. And the way in which you facilitate enables that long-term learning process, which is amazing.
Wow. Thanks, Dinesh, for your kind words. And I'm glad that the experience something that resonate with you. And I'm glad that, this industry is something that you enjoy. We need, the country need, the world need more people like you to help developing leaders, developing team, developing organization. And tell me a little bit about Aspire Up Consultancy. I've always enjoy reading about the stories and how you are helping organization, helping individuals. Tell us what are some of the success stories and how you can help more organization and individuals to be better leaders, better team players. What are some of your secret, if I may call it, in helping people and organization, Dinesh?
Yeah, so a lot of Aspire Ups programs, customized programs. So we start with a base content material and then we customize it to suit the needs of the organization. We are a boutique company, and I think for the foreseeable future, we want to stay boutique simply because we want to be lean and agile to be able to help organizations work closely with them to create the necessary change that they want to see in their people and help their people grow. So as a result of that, a lot of the things that we do in terms of pre and post questionnaire workshops, the designing of material is down to understanding who the participants are, what stage of development they are in, and then fine tuning it to suit the organization. So the leadership programs, the team engagement programs, and team building programs is something that we have been very, very successful delivering some very powerful immersive experiences that they've seen impact in the workplace, and also our sales programs and also our coaching. That's something that I would say are the key elements to what we do. And really, right now, in terms of creating impact, we've been working with, I myself, these last couple of years, have been working with FMCGs, telcos, multinationals across the globe, running leadership and sales programs. And this is the same path Aspire Up is going to be taking, focusing on lot of our programs based on team engagement, team building, sales acceleration, and also leadership in terms of emerging leaders and leaders that are on a mid-level management that are sandwiched between the the top guys and the guys that they're leading and trying to make sure everything works together well. So the middle managers are always the people that they call being sandwiched, and and understanding their challenges and helping them be more effective at what they do in terms of the ability to perform as leaders. So these are the different areas that we focus on, and a lot of our work has been highly successful. It's an immersive experience. It's the same formula that you've been so passionately sharing with us in the Train the Trainer, and that is one of the biggest takeaways for me, which I've now applied in my organization and how we choose to develop our programs to be experiential programs, immersive programs to impact the learner in a meaningful way that they can take back to the workplace.
Wow, wow. I love that, Dinesh. The, you have just brought so much clarity on the role of leaders and the idea of experiencing it. And what do you see Aspire Up in 5 years? Can you share your vision and how you can help more experts, more individual contributors to explore this exciting yet very challenging role of leadership? What is Aspire Up's aspiration in the next 5 years or so? Perhaps you can share your thoughts.
I think that's a really tough question, right? At least the grand plan or the vision is I want to keep I want to keep Aspire Up a boutique organization simply because we can stay agile and we can stay lean to partner with large organizations to really impact change. So I don't I don't foresee Aspire Up getting big as in too large because that's going to take away the ability to provide more personalized service to our corporate clients that we can really impact measurable change. And I want to stay true to that as the goal. So Aspire Up will continue to be a boutique learning and development company over the next 5 years. We will focus on developing in-house and customizable programs that mean to cater to the various levels of leadership, sales acceleration programs, and team engagement programs, getting people working together more cohesively. And sales acceleration, meaning looking at problems, real problems that companies are facing in terms of their sales teams, being able to step up to deliver results for whatever reason in terms of the challenges in the marketplace or the various shifting landscapes in terms of economy, and trying to go in there and do a study and then develop a program that's customized to help the company to leapfrog out. So that's really where we will be focusing on the next 5 years.
Wow, wonderful, Dinesh. I really like your decision to focus on remaining small yet impactful so that you can offer very customized, wonderful product. And I recall during our TTT, you did mention a little bit about your experience, especially in terms of martial art. That's something I remember. But can you tell us more? What martial art you involved in and how that perhaps influenced your leadership positions? Yeah.
Well, I'm so amazed that you can still remember that story, Doctor, after a couple of years now. But yeah, during my school years, I learned Taekwondo, as many people in Malaysia would probably have had the opportunity to be exposed to that in school. And and coming away from school and getting into the corporate world, I spent some time in Thailand for work, and then I I exposed myself to kickboxing, Muay Thai, and it was something that I really enjoyed in terms of how strong you need to build your own physical ability in terms of being able to be resilient and being able to endure. And I think martial arts, it's a great thing. People in the army will be able to attest to that, where you put yourself through things that you never thought you could do, which means physical stress, where you push yourself to the limit, and that limit that you think you have pushed yourself to is not necessarily the real limit, because you can go a little bit more, because there's a saying that goes, the mind gives up before the body. The mind tells you you can't do it before your body actually can't do anymore, whether it's, a 40-kilometer run or a kickboxing session with another person. And I think that builds your stamina, your character, and your ability to endure and persevere to achieve whatever that you're trying to achieve. And I think the physical and the mental is connected. So whatever you do physically is also connected to how you approach work and life. And I think that if you talk about the impact on leadership is to be, if you're a leader, you're actually carrying, you should be the one that is carrying the load of the responsibility of getting whatever task, however big, into to actually create action to create the results that you want. And if you do not have the internal strength, both mentally and also physically, to be able to carry the weight of a particular task for an entire department, for instance, then obviously you won't be able to lead effectively because you crumble under pressure. And as a result, you will also impact your team's morale through that. So, being able to put a brave face, being able to carry the burden, which is bigger than any one of your team members, and being able to decisively break down the task into smaller bite sized pieces for your team to handle it so you can achieve the big goal down the track is what I think martial arts helped me to do. It gave you the, gives you the resolve, the strength to be able to deal with big problems in your stride. So I think that's really what martial arts has, to offer. I'm sure even in the military they teach you these things from your experience. I'm sure you'll be able to share.
Sure, sure. Wonderful, wonderful. Dinesh, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, we have heard Dinesh from 19 years old, traveling across the world and sharing his wisdom, made a little bit of mistakes, get wonderful mentors, and explore
Thank you.
his operational expertise, leadership expertise, transformed organization, and pretty young age at 40s, decided to share his years of wisdom in the field of training. And I love when Dinesh said he gets so much of joy in helping someone to grow, helping someone to achieve their potential. And with that, he helps organization to create leaders, create cohesive, productive teams. So if you want to build your team, if you want to create a great leaders, if you want to develop your organization, Dinesh is the person. The website is down there. And Dinesh, one last words of wisdom. What would you tell future leaders and organization who is keen to develop their leadership?
Well, I think the key is to be an empathetic leader. I think we in the fast paced, you know, m- always changing landscape of this current world that we live in, we forget that empathy is the basis of effective leadership. And I think I'll tell all leaders out there, take a deep breath, calm down, and focus on really engaging with your teams effectively and understanding that your teams may be able to solve the problems far better than you burning it upon yourselves, and allow them to share their wisdom because everybody's got something good to share that might be able to solve the bigger problem that you have ahead. So be more open is the last word that I want to leave all leaders with.
Wow. Dinesh, it has been absolute pleasure having this conversation, listening to your leadership story, and I'm sure our audience will learn so much more. And I hope many more people will have the privilege of engaging your services to enhance leadership. I wish you all the best. And once again, thank you very much, Dinesh.
Thank you, Dr. Prabha, for the opportunity to come on your show and to share some of the things. And it's always good to connect with you. And I wish you every success with the ongoing TTT programs you have in store. And all the best for your future as well, Doctor. See you soon for a cup of
Thank you
coffee.
very much. Sure. Looking forward to that. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.